This is the drawing. It's sort of like this idea that when the imagination is done doing this work, it disappears. So I wanted this really like low relief way of registering all these often invisible sort of support structures, which is how I made it. Yes?
I had a question. How many people did you interview for when you asked the question about are you more creative
when you're suffering? Wait, sorry.
When you asked, you took a survey of people and asked them if they were more creative when they were suffering.
Yeah.
How many people did you?
That was only 5 from Roberto Tejada's class, and from that point I wanted to move on, again to do that like formal survey, which never materialized. But I love that part because it's like the answer yes is not even like nobody answered yes. Oh, really? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel like it's whenever it's changed.
What do you want to say more? I mean, I'm still, okay, cool.
I would like to echo that.
Yeah.
I create when I'm depressed or sad, like the yarn installations that I do are all like from all that, so yeah. Most everything I do is based on like being lonely or being sad, like almost every single project that I have.
Does something have to launch it, or does it just... I can definitely relate, like I totally have that experience. That's most of my creative existence, is like only creating when I'm not sure if I'm going to exist if I don't make a thing, like to prove to myself that whatever. But I was asking you, like, is it, when you're in that state, does it just then happen, or are there other things you have to do to kind of like make that be what you do instead of sit in bed, etc.?
I feel like it comes out of me, vomits.
Yeah.
Think of it like vomit, or like it just comes out. It's this beautiful thing, and I didn't know where it came from.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like trying to find a solution for a thing. Like, how do you get people to talk to you or hang out with you and create a project where they have to?
And that is social practice.
Can we talk a little bit about, well, first of all, I just want to say that I've followed your practice for quite some time. Very layered and dense, but it reveals a lot to me when I leave it after I've experienced it at this scope. But then I have to step back, and then it just kind of unfolds in time because of all the layers, and I think that's just your process. But there's also something in that density. There's also something that's very intimate about much of your work. And I think about the installation that you did at your mother's house, where no one was there, and I walked into the house and I was by myself in your old childhood home. And there's there's also this level of mapping too. But it seems like a thread that's kind of, that seems to be through all your work and all the forms that it manifests, is exploring trauma and the senses. And I was just sharing a text with a friend here, and it was from Christina Sharp, and she said something about the kind of understanding the violence of the word, and that kind of being embedded in kind of language. So it makes me think about sensation and your inclination to create these multiple platforms for sensation. But what happens is that it's so challenging often. You don't always, you have this space where you just don't have the words for it because we're absorbing it right now in our bodies. We're trying to put all this information in different places, and so, but I guess I'm saying that to, kind of tell you, I'm synthesizing it as I'm saying it, but I'm also curious, 2 questions. If you can talk a little bit about trauma in your own work, and what this residency kind of has revealed to you, because like I said, it's been threaded kind of throughout all of your work for some years, and where you're at now on kind of, if you don't mind, on a really personal level, because the work is so personal. And I think I'll leave it at that, actually.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that's a thread of my work, because like what what y'all are saying about this just coming out of you, like, yeah, I've had that experience and it's so amazing, and that's why I'm interested in it, because I believe it, and I'm like, what is that? How is that thing make something possible in a realm where nothing seems possible, right? But to answer that question, I think one thing to note is like what the fellowship gave me again, in moving into this sense of like being able to use all of my senses, thinking below my neck, using my body, is like sort of a checkpoint would be like, if you'd asked me at the beginning, like, describe your leg, what's your sensation of your leg? I would have said like, it's like a vague column filled of like mashed potatoes or something. Like there wasn't a lot of like sensation happening. And through just learning to sense it more, but also like the main thing I found was like that actually it was like that because I injured it some years ago. And it then got sort of stuck in this mode of always being afraid it would be re-injured and would not take any other input. But that also meant that because that was this ongoing habit, it was really easy to go back to the point when it started, which is like right before it fell. And then from that mode, like very slowly try to move in a different direction and see if I could get like my hip to collaborate with my foot and see if I could like sense the ground. And I guess my answer is just that like so much more feels recruitable in me than when my only tool was like just the visual art. And that's something that the fellowship's given me. And it means that like when I'm faced with these threats or even like memories of trauma that's happened in the past, I do feel like I have a lot more maneuvers. I think that's sort of why I'm so fixated on this idea. But it's something about like Olaya's saying, like being able to see a habit that's stuck, and then read back into it kind of forensically to how it started, and then from there launch in a new direction. Because you can't start launching in a new direction like just like, in the example, unclench your hand. You can't just like, you have to somehow arrive and maybe steep a little bit in that moment of trauma, which is often everything we don't want to do. And from there, open your eyes and like actually there's a door to the room and there's a world outside, and like that also will pass. So I think that's sort of what I'm thinking. I mean, I feel probably better than I've ever felt in my life, if that's an answer to your question.
I'm sorry to do that. And I will just say kind of one other thing is this idea of kind of standing within it.
Yeah.
And it seems like just a kind of observance is that the work seems to really be about, instead of kind of running away from it, to actually stand within that space and actually kind of articulate and to allow that to be kind of this kind of fertile kind of a space. Because we look at the work and we go into these pristine spaces or outside and it's still pristine. But then it seems from what I've gotten from this is that it becomes about going beyond that and looking at what informs that and these moments of catharsis. So it makes me go look beyond these the final kind of things that we are presented with from the artist. So.
But also I never would have gotten there without you, so. Julia?
I love the kind of metaphor of the mirror box, and it makes so much sense when it's your own body, but then taking it on to like reflecting other people and creating feeling reflecting through other people. The thought I kept having is that there has to be the connection. Like connection has to be there. Like when you're doing it with yourself, you have that connection, you move people, it's part of you. So I noticed like in the using it as a tool in activism, I think that it could only work when connection is there. It seems like it's often like a request for.
Yeah.
Do you think it has to be back and forth? I'm just wondering your thoughts on that.
I don't know. That's what I was saying. Like the image to me is like in all of these situations where the activists are doing all of these actions, like the other hand is just not showing up. or like worse is like making it worse, and then just yeah, I think the tool is like, how do we get, I don't know, how do you get there? How do you you can't force empathy, but it's inspiring to me, which is why I think I kept riffing on these neurologists, is that, again, it actually is a response. You will respond to another human body, human being. Your system will do it. It's just the habit of repressing that response that makes it seem as if that's not human nature, which is not actually the case. So, yeah, it does have to have that connection. I don't know how we get there, but I know that it seems like the trick or the important part, yeah.
But wouldn't it be that sometimes they wouldn't even need sympathy from the other side, but more of a resistance?
Yeah.
More of an act of I'm here, I don't care what you think, this is, we've always been here, or whatever the message is.
Yeah, also that with so then there's the mirror shield, which is I'm not here so you can connect with me and reflect me. I'm here to show you yourself, which maybe you haven't taken a look at, Yeah. Yeah.
Related to what you said back there, and I think this is something that I've been thinking through in some of my research too, is how motion pictures and fiction help us kind of empathize or see something within ourselves that we have been ignoring. So, we're very used to these images of crisis all over, but then when we see it in a movie or when we see it in a video, it kind of solicits something else. And I think fiction is kind of what a lot of artists are working with today to kind of go through that. And it kind of parallels the same thing that happens with the mirror boxing thing. So it just kind of, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, there's, it's not up anymore, but where do I start? So that's why Octavia Butler's in there, because she's writing about these realities in which, for example, depression is a disease of empathy response that you can't shield from. And she's writing that in 70, right? And that's actually confirmed now, it was in 2011. Or then the example, which is really interesting of and I have a picture of it, you can't see it. So there's these baby seagulls that their mother has a little red dot on their beak. And so the little baby seagulls will always go punch the beak, and it turns out that that's all that they recognize. So there was a scientist that tried this with an abstract, just white stick with a red dot, and the seagulls would still punch it, right? And it's this idea of the brain's way of responding to the symbol. And Ramachandran uses it as an example, and he's well, that's why artists are genius, because they hit the response center, because they know how to tap into that formula. But actually, that's only half of it, because what we get to do using fiction or using things we make up or using things that aren't strict reality is push it further, right? Even push and distort and abstract that dot even more, so that how humans are evolving is potentially sort of going in this direction more. But I definitely wouldn't have gotten through this if I wasn't also listening to Octavia Butler and getting to get in her world for a while, because it's a way of being in a realm of completely different possibilities. Yeah. So I'm with you on that. Yeah, Laura.
So I was thinking about mirrors and how mirrors show a reverse image of yourself. And then it can also shine, you shine a light, you reflect. And another point about fiction is if you make something up, but everyone else thinks it's real, it is real. It becomes reality. Or you can change your own past by envisioning something that went differently, and then it becomes real, and then it biologically changes you. I think that is the kind of beauty of art out of trauma, or either you can envision something else.
Yeah, there's two more Butler examples. One is in 1998, she writes about a fascist regime coming to power using the slogan, "Make America Great Again." And then she also has a series that's all about this this parasitic, basically ruler who's selectively breeding people called Doro, and it has to be parasitic, and that's the only way that systems can work, and that's the only way social bonds can happen. But then she introduces this other character that congregates people because they like being around other people with similar gifts. And then in the next generation, the character is not parasitic, she's actually a symbiont, and she's sort of the hub of this wheel of interchanging and reciprocal dynamics between people. So yeah, it's like this full arc of like, what are we stuck with, and what else can there be that's so powerful? And also those mirrors. Yeah, thanks also for giving those thoughts about what else mirrors can do.
Okay, so thank you very much, Carrie.